my name is Luke and I'm with Katie and Toby. We are youth ministers from a bunch of churches across the Inner West. Over the next little while, we'll be bringing you some content while we can't physically meet together to help us still keep fixing our eyes on Jesus. We're going to start off by just talking about COVID generally. We're not going to give you all of the stuff you can get from the news because you have the news for that. We want to give you particularly a Christian insight into COVID-19 and how we respond to that, where we find real hope in that as well. So the first thing we want to talk about and we want to flag is that this is actually a really sad season. It's really sad for church because we can't meet together and be together. And I don't know how you're feeling about this at the moment. You might be feeling really anxious about the future. Your little empathetic heart might be breaking for those in your community who are vulnerable. You might be really enjoying the time that you get to spend with your family and getting to do creative new things with school. I don't know how you're feeling. I'm feeling pretty anxious about the future, and I thought we might just share some things about how we're feeling and about the things that we're seeing in the world. So over to you guys.
Yeah, so I was reflecting on this and thinking about kind of why is all this panic buying happening? And I think it's happening because people are afraid of what's unknown. And more than that, they're actually having their control pulled away from them. Because we don't know what's happening, we're afraid we won't have enough food, we won't have all this sense of security and control over our own life is getting pulled away. And I think that actually is the heart of our problem with sin, right? Is this moment where we say, instead of God being in control, we're going to be in control. And so we're seeing this moment where kind of at the center of what sin is us taking control for ourselves. That's being forced away from us. And so as sinful people, as broken people, we're kicking against that and we're freaking out because it's not what we want. We want, as sinful people, to be in control. And so I think that's why we're seeing panic buying and stuff, because we're anxious and we're feeling like, hang on, I want to be in control and I'm not at the moment. And that's why I think actually the Bible has heaps to say about how do we as Christians respond in this time of COVID-19.
Yeah, one of the things I really feel that not being able to physically gather with people I've found really hard. Just feeling really distant in those relationships. And one of the things I've been thinking about is I think it's in moments like this that we really see the value of those relationships, being able to physically gather with people. And I think it goes deeper in that we start to see actually we are built to relate to one another. And I think that's where the Bible goes in terms of relating to one another, but ultimately that we're built to be in relationship with God, the Creator. And in a way, because of sin and picking up some of the stuff that you were saying, Toby, that we are actually isolated because of our sin from God, and there's that distance between us and God. But the beauty of the story of the Bible is that God has fixed that problem. And so, just reflecting on being isolated from people has really helped me to reflect on relationships with one another, but also, that we're built for a relationship with God.
Yeah, totally. And so as we enter into a period where we're not doing the things that we're made for, we're not able to get along to youth group and give each other a high five or give each other a hug or whatever it is, we want to flag that it's totally okay to be feeling sad about that, to be feeling anxious about that, to be feeling a little overwhelmed. We're feeling it, and if you're feeling it, that's so fine. And we have hope. It's not a but we have hope, we're not ignoring those feelings. But in the middle of all of that, we still have hope. Where have you guys been looking to for solid hope amidst a world that keeps changing and keeps fluctuating? And
yeah, I mean, the short answer is Jesus, isn't it? But specifically, I've been reflecting on Revelation chapter 1. Jesus says to John, the Apostle John, who writes the book, do you know, I am the Alpha and the Omega, who was, who is, and who is to come, the Almighty. And that's been a beautiful comfort in that, kind of as I was saying earlier, like this time of unknowing and anxiety, we actually know the God who was before all creation, who is in creation, and who will be here after creation. And in him, we are brought into that truth, where because we know him, we get to look forward to the day where actually all of this will be no longer existing, and there will be no tears or sickness or anything like this. And the other thing that's been really encouraging for me is in Colossians, where it says that actually Jesus is in him, all things were created, and by him all things are held together or sustained. Which means actually, even in this time of not knowing what's going on, we can be sure that Jesus is the one who is at work in this, even if we don't necessarily understand how he's at work in this place yet.
For me, on Sunday at church, we reflected from Mark 4, where Jesus calms the storm. So the disciples are going with Jesus across the lake. It's dark. And this isn't a journey that they haven't done before. Like, this is, lots of them are fishermen, and so this is quite a familiar territory for them. And this storm comes up, and Jesus is asleep. And the disciples ask this question. They wake Jesus and they say, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" And I think that's the question that lots of our world is asking. Like, Jesus, like God, don't you care about what's going on? And then I love what Jesus wakes up, and in like a couple of words, he calms the storm. He says, "Quiet, be still." And what I love about Jesus' response is that not only does he care, but he's also completely in control, and he's powerful to stop that storm. And so the answer to the question, "Teacher, don't you care?" It's like Jesus not only cares, but he's also powerful in that moment. And as we reflected on Sunday at church, he doesn't stop the disciples from going into the boat. He knows that the storm is coming, and yet he's with them through it. Jesus hops into the boat with the disciples. And so we have a God who is with us as Christians through the storm. That doesn't mean that it makes it less real about what's going on or any of those things, but we can have hope and a comfort that God is with us in this moment with whatever we're feeling. So that's been a real comfort for me this week.
Totally. So Jesus isn't fazed by this. Like, this isn't a surprise to Jesus, but also we have a God who is with us through it all. I've been reflecting on the story that Jesus tells as he talks about people who build their houses in different places. One is a wise man, and he builds his house on rock, something unchangeable and stable, and the other one builds his house on sand that, ultimately doesn't last through the storm that comes through. And just how good it is that we have an unshakable hope, like the man who built his house on the rock, who has an unshakable foundation. We have an unshakable foundation in Jesus as well. So even as everything around us is changing, when suddenly we're not at school and your parents might not be at work and things are shifting so quickly, we know that our hope isn't in those things. Our hope is in Jesus. And that is such good news. So I thought the third thing that would be good for us to chat about is, what do we do now? We expect that God is still going to do the thing that God does and transform our hearts and make us more like Jesus, even though lots of other things are cancelled. Transformation is not cancelled. Hope isn't cancelled. Faith isn't cancelled. So what can we do now? What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, I think keep meeting together will be central. It's going to look different. It might be online. It might be in smaller numbers. It might not be as regular, but keep meeting together. Jesus died so that the church can be built. So let's keep being the church. So let's keep meeting together. And I think there's some really practical ways as well of how to love each other as well. Did you want to speak into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ways that we can love one another, I think the Christian faith transforms that we don't have to be self-centered. Jesus comes not to be served, but to serve. And so the practical ways of, looking out for our friends that we might know that being isolated is really hard. And so that's the beauty of technology and getting in contact with them. You might have elderly neighbours who, this is such a great opportunity for our community to actually show our love and care for them. So it might be, dropping them a letter and saying, "Hey, how can I practically help you with groceries?" Or giving them a call because they might be separated from their own families. And what a great opportunity to actually say, "Hey, I'm a Christian and I want to love and care for you in that moment." Yes, I think, and I think you can keep thinking within your own groups about and discussion with your leaders about other ways that you might want to do that as a group. I think the other thing I would say is just that this raises questions about suffering and death for lots of people, and you might be someone who isn't a Christian, or we speak of this hope that we have and this comfort, and you're just like, I don't have that. And so I think this is such a great time to explore that. And I guess all of us would encourage you to find that hope and comfort in the God of the Bible. But yeah, this is a time to actually ask those questions and to look for those answers. So yeah.
Huge. We want to invite you to reimagine what this period could be. God is totally in the business of taking awful things and making beautiful things out of them. Doesn't stop that thing from being awful, but he does it anyway. I don't know if you can think of any ones that come immediately to mind. My mind jumps to when Jesus died on the cross, when God's people killed God's son, the worst thing that could happen. And God made something beautiful out of that. He made it possible for us to know him forever. So join us in reimagining what this period could be. As you feel your grief and anxiety, don't ignore that. Keep clinging to hope deeply and tightly. And keep imagining how you could practically and radically love the people around you. That's all for us. See you guys.